Had some choice words for President Trump's allies amid his escalating rhetoric toward Iran. Green wrote on X this morning, quote, "Stop worshiping the president and intervene in Trump's madness. I know all of you and him, and he has gone insane, and all of you are complicit." Green resigned from her seat in January following a public split with Trump. On Tuesday, Trump endorsed Republican Clayton Fuller, a former lieutenant colonel in the Air National Guard, who is facing off against Democrat Sean Harris. And retired Army Brigadier General Sean Harris joins us now. So, General, you're running in a very deep red district. Cook Political Report even called it the most GOP district in all of Georgia. And last time you ran against Green, she won by nearly 30 points. And Trump won too, 37 over Kamala Harris. So you really got an uphill battle here. What has been your message to the district as to why you should occupy the seat?
Yeah, first, let me just say happy Easter to everybody. The reality is you're exactly right. I ran against Marjorie Taylor Greene last time. We came in second. There's no second place trophies, but a lot has changed since then. As you just said, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Donald Trump has had a major divorce, and that divorce is still going on as we speak. The person that I'm running against right now is weak because he sold his soul to Donald Trump, and he can't say anything about this war of choice that we're in. He can't say anything about the cost of living. He can't push back on anything. And everybody here in Northwest Georgia, Democrats, Independents, and yes, Republicans, are coalescing behind me. And come Tuesday, you're going to see we're going to flip this seat.
How much of General Harris? How much is the war in Iran impacting what your constituents are telling you down there in that district?
Yeah, the reality is they talk about two things, and they talk about it in two different ways. One, in the rural community, many of our kids and grandkids go into the military to get a leg up. So there's many of the people in my district actually have kids that are in the military. Some are actually part of that 50,000 that's over there in the Middle East. So they're concerned that way. But what's really affecting us is actually when it comes to the everyday costs. My district, the number one industry is agriculture. I'm a cattle farmer, and it's affecting us when it comes to the price of diesel, but also when it comes to the price of fertilizer. It's killing us right now. And so that's what's the biggest issue right now is they're saying, Mr. Harris or Sean or General, whatever they want to call me, they say, look, go to D.C., please address these things and bring down costs, get the farm bill passed, bring some health care here. These are the issues that are affecting us here in the district.
Could you elaborate a little bit more on how you plan to bring down costs for people in your district?
Yeah, when I get to D.C., I'm going to actually stand up because right now I believe Democrats and Republicans both in D.C. are basically just playing to the cameras. When I get there, I want to be the person that says, stop. Let's get in the room. Let's get to the real issues. Find yes, so that we can actually bring down costs. But bringing down costs is telling the president of the United States that a tariff is a tax and is killing rural America. He can say that he loves the farmers. I'm going to get to D.C. and push him on it, push Congress on it to get the farm bill passed so that we can actually take care of all our farmers here in the district.
General, I'm curious if you think to any extent Marjorie Taylor Greene still speaks for many of the people who are, of course, living in the district but may vote for you. And I ask because, she has continued to speak very openly about the way that she feels about policy, about this president right now. She had a response for his very interesting Truth Social post this morning and called him out for not being a Christian. She has been against this war. And I'm curious if, in a way, I know that the two of you, of course, ran against each other at one point. You were opponents. I'm sure you maybe don't feel like you guys are friends. But if there is a way in which, strangely, your messages and your conversations with community members have converged. Yeah,
the reality of it is I ran against Marjorie Taylor Greene, but I'm also, if you think about it, there's a new Marjorie Taylor Greene out there. I call it Marjorie Taylor Greene 2.0. Marjorie Taylor Greene 2.0 sounds very similar to me. She talks about health care costs. She talks about the cost of living being too high. She talks about the Epstein files need to be released. She talks about this war clearly is a war of choice. The reality of it is Sean Harris' message has not changed. Marjorie Taylor Greene's message has came back to my moderate Democratic side. And when Marjorie Taylor Greene and I are speaking to the community, it is people in our community, not all, but it is people in our community that's saying, you know what? I'm going to give Sean Harris a chance because when he wins this election on the 7th, he is only in D.C. from now to November. And what I've told everybody in this district, if I don't actually bring home results in that little bit of time, then you can fire me in November. But if I do, then you can continue to keep voting for change. And I've also told them that when I get to D.C., I don't plan to stay in D.C. the rest of my life. I've already retired one time from the service. I only want to stay up there for term limits that I'll just be 6 years, and then we'll get somebody else up there to replace me.
Handling of this conflict?
I mean, he is completely unhinged and unwell. And when I think about our service members whose lives are being put on the line by this deranged president, our national security that is at risk, I have a 6-year-old and a 1-year-old, the future that they are going to have, because he is unwinding a century of policies that have brought the longest stability and peace in the world and completely dismantling our standing in the world. So I'm horrified.
Well, the president made a number of false claims during his Iran address this past week, including that our economy is undergoing zero inflation. The price of oil is set in a global market, and the average price of gas in the U.S. tops now $4 a gallon. It is the biggest surge in 6 years. So what's your response to the administration just downplaying the economic impact of this war?
I mean, things have never been harder for regular people in this country. Trump promised to lower costs on day one, and he has done anything but that. We know people, the number one pain point is their ability to put a roof over their head. And that is a huge issue for Americans. But now you're bringing all of these other costs, the cost of groceries, the cost of gas, just being able to heat and cool their homes. I mean, this is hitting Americans at every level, and not to mention the fact that he's ripped healthcare away from millions while giving the largest tax breaks to the most wealthy individuals in the history of our country. So we know where his priorities are, and it is not us.
So Speaker Mike Johnson and President Trump, they have a two-step plan to fund DHS. Johnson agreed to put forward the bipartisan Senate measure that he and other Republicans slammed last week, which contains no funding for ICE and Border Patrol, and plans to later fund those agencies through party line spending legislation. What does this signal about where negotiations are headed?
So, I mean, he needs to bring us back next week to pass this bill. The Senate has now moved forward with this bill twice. It's what Democrats have been calling for from the very beginning. We want to rein in this rogue agency. We are not going to give another dime to ICE until we bring common sense reforms that are necessary that the American people agree with. And our TSA agents, the people working for our Coast Guard, and our cybersecurity agents should not be held hostage in these negotiations. So it's what we've been calling for. The Senate finally has passed this twice, and we should be called back, not even next week. We should be there right now. He should be calling us to come to Washington to pass this bill. It is Speaker Johnson and Trump are the only reason that this hasn't happened yet.
Well, President Trump did sign an executive order to create a national list of eligible voters to restrict mail-in voting and also withhold funding from states that don't comply. What will you do to ensure Colorado voters are able to cast their ballots by mail? And what steps will Colorado and other states take to stop the administration from seizing power to run elections, which are run constitutionally by the states?
So you have it exactly right. There's already lawsuits moving forward. It is in the Constitution that states oversee our elections. It's actually a critical piece of making sure we don't have somebody unhinged like Donald Trump that could have a better chance at stealing an election if it's nationalized. And I can guarantee you that our AG, our Secretary of State, our laws will ensure that we will not let Donald Trump dictate who gets a mail-in ballot in Colorado. We know they are only U.S. citizens, and we're not going to let the federal government tell us who actually can have these. We have the most secure and accessible elections.
The scariest race for Trump Republicans is not always the one they already lost. Sometimes it is the one they were never supposed to worry about. And that is exactly what is happening in Georgia. The transcript says Democrat Sean Harris is running in one of the reddest districts in the entire state, the same area where Marjorie Taylor Greene once won by nearly 30 points and Trump won by 37. But now the ground has shifted. Greene has publicly split from Trump, called out his Iran madness, and the MAGA coalition that used to protect this seat is cracking right in front of everyone. So ye. Harris is hammering the issues Trump Republicans cannot answer: the war in Iran, military families worried about loved ones overseas, diesel prices, fertilizer costs, healthcare, tariffs, and the cost of living crushing rural voters. He says even Democrats, independents and Republicans in northwest Georgia are starting to coalesce around him because the Trump-backed Republican candidate cannot push back on anything. That is why this election is so dangerous for Trump. Even if Republicans try to spin the result, the margin matters. The transcript makes the point clearly. When a district that should be safely MAGA suddenly becomes competitive, that is a loss by itself. It means Trump's brand is weaker, his coalition is divided, and Democrats are finding space in places Republicans used to take for granted. So yes, Georgia is flashing red for the GOP. Trump may still demand loyalty, but voters are demanding lower costs, safer leadership, and someone who actually shows up for them. Comment below. Is Georgia proof Trump's political term is already ending?